Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Living with ADHD and CPTSD. Today, I am going to talk about CPTSD, and the topic is the Polyvagal Theory. This is something that I have just learned about in the last few days, and I believe is a very important theory in regards to CPTSD and other trauma-related problems. So I am going to do this today, and I hope this is very helpful for everyone who listens to this episode. Oh, right. So, Dr. Stephen Porges, originator of the polyvagal theory, identified a biological order of human response that is active in all human experience. With gratitude to Dr. Porges for his work, this handout explores and explains polyvagal theory in a user-friendly language, which honestly is really great because the actual book that the doctor wrote is very scientific. I'm pretty sure that most of us would have a hard time understanding it and get lost, pretty much right away. Okay, so we come into the world wired to connect. With our first breath, we embark on a quest to feel safe in our bodies, in our environments, and in our relationships with others. The autonomic nervous system is our personal surveillance system. Always on guard, asking the question, is this safe? Its goal is to protect us by sensing safety and risk, listening moment by moment to what is happening in and around our bodies and in the connections we have to others. This listening happens far below awareness and far away from our conscious control. Dr. Porges, understanding that this is not awareness that comes with perception, coined the term neuroception to describe the way our autonomic nervous system scans for cues of safety, danger, and life threat without involving the thinking parts of our brain, because we humans are meaning-making beings. What begins as the wordless experiencing of neuroception drives the creation of a story that shapes our daily living. The autonomic nervous system anatomy and abilities. The autonomic nervous system is made up of two main branches, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, and responds to signals and sensations via three pathways, each with a characteristic pattern of response. Through each of these pathways, we react in service of survival. The sympathetic branch is found in the middle part of the spinal cord and represents the pathway that prepares us for action. It responds to cues of danger and triggers the release of adrenaline, which fuels the fight or flight response. In the parasympathetic branch, the remaining two pathways are found in a nerve called the vagus. Vagus, meaning wanderer, is aptly named. From the brainstem at the base of the skull, the vagus travels in two directions, downward through the lungs, heart, diaphragm, and stomach, and upwards to connect with nerves in the neck, throat, eyes, and ears. The vagus is divided into two parts, the ventral vagal pathway and the dorsal vagal pathway. The ventral vagal pathway responds to cues of safety and supports the feelings of being safely engaged and socially connected. In contrast, the dorsal vagal pathway responds to cues of extreme danger. It takes us out of connection, out of awareness, and into the protective state of collapse. When we feel frozen, numb, or not here, the dorsal vagus has taken control. Dr. Porges identified a hierarchy of response built into our autonomic nervous system and anchored in the evolutionary development of our species. The origin of the dorsal vagal pathway of the parasympathetic branch and its immobilization response lies with our ancient vertebrate ancestors and is the oldest pathway. The sympathetic branch and its pattern of mobilization was next to develop. The most recent addition, the ventral vagal pathway of the parasympathetic branch, brings patterns of social engagement that are unique to mammals. When we are firmly grounded in our ventral vagal pathway, we feel safe and connected, calm and social. A sense, neuroception of danger can trigger us out of the state and backwards on the evolutionary timeline into the sympathetic branch. Here we are mobilized to respond and take action. Taking action can help us return to the safe and social state. It is when we feel as though we are trapped and can't escape the danger that the dorsal vagal pathway pulls us all the way back to our evolutionary beginnings. In this state, we are immobilized. We shut down to survive, From here, it is a long way back to feeling safe and social and a painful path to follow. The automatic ladder. Let's translate our basic knowledge of the autonomic nervous system into everyday understanding by imagining the autonomic nervous system as a ladder. How do our experiences change as we move up and down the ladder? The top of the ladder. What would it feel like to be safe and warm? Arms strong but gentle, snuggled close, joined by tears and laughter, free to share, to stay, to leave. Safety and connection are guided by the evolutionary newest part of the autonomic nervous system. Our social engagement system is active in the ventral vagal pathway of the parasympathetic branch. In this state, our heart rate is regulated, our breath is full, we take in the faces of friends, and we can tune into conversations and tune out distracting noises. We see the big picture and connect to the world and the people in it. I might describe myself as happy, active, interested, and the world as safe, fun, and peaceful. From this ventral vagal place at the top of the autonomic ladder, I am connected to my experiences and can reach out to others. Some of the daily living experiences of this state include being organized, following through with plans, taking care of myself, taking time to play, doing things with others, feeling productive at work, and having a general feeling of regulation and a sense of management. Health benefits include a healthy heart, regulated blood pressure, a healthy immune system, decreasing my vulnerability to illness, good digestion, quality sleep, and an overall sense of well-being. Moving down the ladder. The sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system activates when we feel a stirring of unease. When something triggers a neuroception of danger, we go into action. Fight or flight happens here. In this state, our heart rate speeds up, our breath is short and shallow, we scan our environment looking for danger, we are on the move. I might describe myself as anxious or angry and feel the rush of adrenaline that makes it hard for me to be still. I am listening for the sounds of danger and don't hear the sounds of friendly voices. The world may feel dangerous, chaotic, and unfriendly. From this place of sympathetic mobilization, a step down the autonomic ladder and backward on the evolutionary timeline, I may believe. The world is a dangerous place, and I need to protect myself from harm. Some of the daily living problems can be anxiety, panic attacks, anger, inability to focus or follow through, and distress in relationships. Health consequences can include heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, sleep problems, weight gain, memory impairment, headache, chronic neck, shoulder, and back tension, stomach problems, and increased vulnerability to illness. The bottom of the ladder. Our oldest pathway of response, the dorsal vagal pathway of the parasympathetic branch, is the path of last resort. When all else fails, when we are trapped and action doesn't work, the primitive vagus takes us into shutdown, collapse, and dissociation. Here at the very bottom of the autonomic ladder, I am alone with my despair and escape into not knowing, not feeling, almost a sense of not being. I might describe myself as hopeless, abandoned, foggy, too tired to think or act, and the world as empty, dead, and dark. From this earliest place on the evolutionary timeline, where my mind and body have moved into conversation mode, I may believe I am lost and no one will ever find me. Some of the daily living problems can be dissociation, problems with memory, depression, isolation, and no energy to do the tasks of daily living. Health consequences of this state can include chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, stomach problems, low blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and weight gain. Ooh, yeah. So I've heard of this before, but I never really, understood the name. So polyvagal is the first time I've heard of it. And I have heard of this whole idea of the fight or flight. The latter is definitely a new idea in my mind, but I think it's amazing. It really does explain it. If you think about it, if you're in a good state of mind and you don't have trauma like CPTSD or PTSD, you more often than not are going to be at the top of the ladder. You're going to feel good, you're going to feel calm and sound of mind, and you're not going to be worried about things and feeling threatened or be in danger with your parts. And then, the odd time that there is something that goes wrong, like a dangerous situation or a sudden unexpected problem that occurs that could be potentially dangerous, you a lot of times can go into the middle of the ladder or down the ladder, and even more rare, you could be at the bottom of the ladder where everything is dark and you're fight or flight and you're having to decide in the moment what to do. Now, someone who's got CPTSD and deals with flashbacks all the time, like myself, it more often than not, you're going to be at the bottom of the ladder and working your way up to try and get into the middle of the ladder. And the amount of times that you're actually at the top of the ladder is not very often. If you're alone and you're dissociating, sometimes it might feel like you're at the top of the ladder, but in reality, you're really not. Okay, so let's keep going. Daily movements on the ladder. Now that we've explored each of the places on the automatic ladder, let's consider how we move up and down. Our preferred place is at the top of the ladder. As the song "I Can See Clearly Now," written by Johnny Nash, says, "I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind." That's a very popular song. I'm sure all of you have heard it, and it's been sung by other people too. So the ventral vagal state is hopeful and resourceful. We can live, love, and laugh by ourselves and with others. But this is not a place where everything is wonderful or a place without problems, but it is a place where we have the ability to acknowledge distress and explore options, to reach out for support and develop organized responses. We move down the ladder into action when we are triggered into a sense of unease, of impending danger. We hope that our action taking here will give us enough space to take a breath and climb back up the ladder to the place of safety and connection. It is when we fall all the way down the ladder to the bottom rungs that the safety and hope of the top of the ladder feels unreachable. Yeah, that's true. For a lot of people who have CPTSD, it feels very difficult and nearly impossible to get to that top because you're always feeling triggered, or any slightest problem or situation could trigger you. What might a real life example of moving up and down the autonomic ladder look like? All right, here's a couple scenarios. This is in third person, all right? So not actually me, of course. So I am driving to work in the morning, listening to the radio and enjoying the beginning of the day. Top of the ladder. When a siren sounds behind me, quick move down the ladder, I feel my heart race and immediately worry that I've done something wrong, staying in my spot down the ladder. I pull over and the police car rushes by me. I pull back out and resume my drive to work and feel my heart begin to return to its normal speed, moving back up the ladder. By the time I get to work, I have forgotten about the incident and I am ready for my day, back at the top of the ladder. All right, another one. I am having dinner with friends, enjoying the conversation and the fun of being out with people I like, top of the ladder. The conversation turns to vacations and I start comparing my situation to my friend's situation. I begin to feel angry that I can't afford a vacation, that my job doesn't pay enough, that I have so many unpaid bills I'll never be able to take a vacation, moving down the ladder. I sit back and watch as my friends continue to talk about trips and travel planning. I disconnect from the conversation and begin to feel invisible as the talk goes on around me, shutting down and moving to the bottom of the ladder. The evening ends with my friends not noticing my silence and with me feeling like a misfit in the group, stuck at the bottom of the ladder. I go home and crawl into bed. The only place I know now is the bottom of the ladder. The next morning I wake up and don't want to get up or go to work, still at the bottom of the ladder. I worry I'll get fired if I don't show up and drag myself out of bed, a bit of energy and beginning a movement up the ladder. I am late to work. My boss comments on my lateness, and I have a hard time holding in an angry response, continuing to move up the ladder and with more mobilized energy. I decide I've had enough of this job and will seriously look for a new one, still moving up the ladder. I begin to consider the skills I can bring to a new job, and that with the right job, I will be able to pay my bills and maybe even take a vacation. I have lunch with a coworker and we talk about our jobs and dreams for the future. Back at the top of the ladder. Okay, systems working together. We experience well-being when the three parts of our autonomic nervous system work together. To understand this integration, we leave the imagery of the ladder and imagine instead a home. The dorsal vagal system runs the basic utilities of the home. This system works continually in the background, keeping our basic body systems online and in order. Where there is a glitch in the system, we pay attention. When all is running smoothly, the body functions work automatically. Without the influence of the ventral vagal system, the basic utilities run the empty house, but no one is home. Or if we are home, the environment is one that brings no comfort. Everything is turned down to the lowest possible setting, enough to keep the air circulating and the pipes from freezing. The environment is just habitable enough to sustain life. The sympathetic branch can be thought of as the home security system, maintaining a range of responses and armed to react to any emergencies. This alarm system is designed to trigger an immediate response and then return to standby. Without the influence of the ventral vagal system, the alarm system receives a steady stream of emergency notifications and continues to sound the alarm. The ventral vagal system allows us to soak in and savor this home we are inhabiting. We can enjoy it as a place to rest and renew by ourselves, and as a place to join with friends and family. We feel the basic utilities running in the background. The rhythms of our heart and breath are regulated. We trust that the monitoring system is on standby. The integration of systems allows us to be compassionate towards others, curious about the world we live in, and emotionally and physically connected to others. Okay. So that's nice. I really enjoyed that one. And it's quite interesting when you really think about it. It is very important in our lives to have the system working correctly in order to feel safe and in the proper state of mind or state of mood on a daily basis. And obviously, when this is affected by trauma, as I will explain later on in the episode here, the system can definitely be damaged and in need of repairs, if you want to put it that way. All right, everybody, I'm going to take a quick break, and then when I come back, I will continue on and we'll talk about this and continue going on about polyvagal theory, and we'll talk about how it relates to social cues. All right, everyone, have a great break, and I will see you soon. Bye. Welcome back, everybody, to Living with ADHD and CPTSD. Again, we were talking about the polyvagal theory. Okay, so before I continue, I am, as some of you may be aware, testing my video recording of my episodes, and I do have it currently as a bonus from my provider who allows me to publish these episodes to places like Apple and iHeartRadio and Google. If you are interested in watching the video version of my episode, you can find it, and the Anchor program is what I use to publish my episodes. So if you're curious about it, you can check it out there. I am uploading these also to YouTube. I'm still working on the fine-tuning of it, but I figured I'd put my episodes on there now, and then eventually we'll really work on it and get it a little more regular basis. Okay, so polyvagal theory and how it relates to social cues. Have you ever been in a situation where you feel uncertain or in danger, but not really sure why? You may look around and see that no one else seems to be bothered, but something still feels off to you. You may not realize it, but you are walking around in the world each day reading thousands of social cues in your environment. In our interacting with others, we pick up facial expressions, tones of voice, bodily movement, and more. We are constantly busy observing and interacting with the world and others as part of the human experience. As we have these interactions with others, our sense of self is being shaped. We learn about ourselves and about others, who we can trust and who feels dangerous to us. Our bodies are processing this type of information constantly through these interactions with the world. The body surveillance system. Our nervous system is a complex structure that gathers information from all over our body and coordinates activity. There are two main parts of the nervous system, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system consists of two structures, the brain, this is the structure composed of billions of interconnected neurons or nerve cells contained in the skull and functions as the coordinating center for almost all of our body's functions. It is the seat of our intellect. Well, I think we all know that. And then the spinal cord. This is a bundled network of nerve fibers connecting most parts of our body to our brain. And peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system consists of all of the nerves outside of our brain and spinal cord. It can be categorized into two distinct systems. Somatic nervous system, which is voluntary. This system allows our muscles and brains to communicate with each other. The somatic system helps our brain and spinal cord to send signals to our muscles to help them move, as well as sends information from the body back to the brain and spinal cord. And autonomic nervous system, involuntary. This is the system that controls the glands and internal organs, such as the heart, lungs, and digestive system. These are essentially the things that run our body without us having to intentionally think about them. For example, we can breathe without having to think about taking a breath each time. Reading danger cues. Our autonomic nervous system, the involuntary system that helps to control things, is complex and always busy. In addition to running these important functions in our bodies, such as helping us breathe, helping our heart pump, and helping us digest food, our autonomic nervous system is also helping us to scan, interpret, and respond to danger cues. There are two separate systems that work within our autonomic nervous system that are helping us to read and respond to danger cues: the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is involved in arousing our bodies to respond by mobilizing us to move when in dangerous situations. Many refer to this system as prompting our fight or flight reactions, like I said earlier in the episode. It is also responsible for activating our adrenal glands to release epinephrine into our bloodstream, otherwise known as an adrenaline rush. When we see a snake, or our sympathetic nervous system will read the cue of the potential threat and prompt our body to respond, likely involving a quick adrenaline rush and us immediately moving away from the snake. With parasympathetic nervous system, this system is involved in calming our bodies, conserving energy as it begins to do things like slow our heart rate, regulate our digestion, and lower our blood pressure. Some refer to this as the rest and digest system. As we begin to read that a cue is not dangerous, our body begins to calm with the help of our parasympathetic nervous system. All right. The vagus nerve. There is one nerve in particular that is of interest to Dr. Stephen Porges. The vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve, a very long and wandering nerve that begins at the medulla oblongata. This part of the brain, the medulla oblongata, is located in the lower part of the brain, sitting just above where the brain connects with our spinal cord. There are two sides to this vagus nerve, the dorsal, which is the back, and the ventral, the front. From there, the two sides of the vagus nerve run down throughout our body, considered to have the widest distribution of all the nerves within the human body. Scanning our environment. From the time we are born, we are intuitively scanning our environment for cues of safety and danger. We are wired for connection, and in order to help us survive, our bodies are designed and prepared for observing, processing, and responding to our environment. A baby responds to the safe feelings of closeness with their parent or caregiver. Likewise, a baby will respond to cues that are perceived as scary or dangerous, like a stranger, a scary noise, or a lack of response from their caregiver. We scan for cues of safety and danger our entire lives. Neuroception. All right, in the Polyvagal Theory, The process in which our neural circuits are reading cues of danger in our environment as neuroception. Through this process of neuroception, we are experiencing the world in a way which we are involuntarily scanning situations and people to determine if they are safe or dangerous. As part of our autonomic nervous system, this process is happening without us even being aware that it is happening. Just as we are able to breathe without having to intentionally tell ourselves to take a breath, we are able to scan our environment for cues without telling ourselves to do so. The vagus nerve is of particular interest during this process of neuroception. In the process of neuroception, both sides of our vagus nerve can be stimulated. Each side has been found to respond in distinct ways as we can scan and process information from our environment and social interactions. The ventral side of the vagus nerve responds to cues of safety in our environment and interactions. It supports feelings of physical safety and being safely emotionally connected to others in our social environment. The dorsal side of the vagus nerve responds to cues of danger. It pulls us away from connection, out of awareness, and into a state of self-protection. In moments when we might experience a cue of extreme danger, we can shut down and feel frozen, an indication that our dorsal vagal nerve has taken over. 3 developmental stages of response. Within this theory, Porges described that there are 3 evolutionary stages involved in the development of our autonomic nervous system. Rather than simply suggesting that there is a balance between our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, he describes that there is actually a hierarchy of responses built into our autonomic nervous system. Immobilization, mobilization, and social engagement. Okay. So it's kind of similar, but it's a little more descriptive. That just so you know. Okay, impact of trauma. Now we're getting into something, okay? When someone has experienced trauma, particularly in experiences where they were left immobilized, their ability to scan their environment for danger cues can become skewed. Of course, our body's goal is to help us never experience a terrifying moment like that again, so it will do whatever it needs to in order to help us protect us. As our surveillance system kicks into overdrive, working very hard to protect us, it can also read many cues in our environment as dangerous, even those cues that might be perceived as neutral or benign to other people. Our social engagement allows us to interact more fluidly with others, feeling connected and safe. When our body picks up a cue with an interaction that signals we may not be safe, it begins to respond. For many, this cue may move them into a place of mobilization response, springing into action to attempt to neutralize the threat or get away from the threat. For those who have experienced trauma, the signal of a danger cue can move them directly from social engagement to a mobilization. As they come to associate numerous interpersonal cues as dangerous, such as a slight change of facial expression, a particular tone of voice, or certain types of body posturing, they can connect themselves going back to a place of response that is familiar to them in an effort to prepare and protect themselves. A response of mobilization may not be registered by the body as an option. This can be quite confusing for trauma survivors, unaware of how this hierarchy of response is influenced by their interactions with others and the world. Wow. Talk about, a little crazy. Okay. We innately long for feelings of safety, trust, and comfort in our connections with others, and quickly pick up cues that tell us when we may not be safe. As people become safer with and for each other, it can be easier to build healthy bonds, share vulnerabilities, and experience intimacy with each other. So, when you sit there and you think about this, and I am sure you are, and of course I am too as I'm reading this. As I said just before the break, a normal or neurotypical person who has not really experienced trauma and stress have very normal responses with the polyvagal, with the vagal nerve and what they've been describing. And you get your typical responses. If you feel danger, you have your response. As soon as the danger feeling has gone away, your system recovers. And you start to feel back to a grounded state. And when someone who's experienced trauma, you have a very difficult time, well, one, being in that normal grounded state, and then you're more likely to get triggered into the state of fight or flight, or like immobilization, and it's much more difficult for someone who has the trauma and experiencing flashbacks to recover from that and feel safe again. It's one of those things that you really just, you will understand it more. It's a kind of a difficult thing to understand at first, so you just have to kind of, I do suggest doing some research on this, and then you might have a better understanding of exactly what happens. Okay. Response stages of polyvagal theory. Social engagement. When our automatic nervous system says the situation is safe, our vagus nerve sends a signal to our body to relax. Our lungs inflate and take in more oxygen, our heart rate slows down, and our digestion functions correctly. When we are in this calm state, we are in social engagement mode, helping us feel safe, secure, and able to easily bond with others. Activation mode, or fight or flight. Our bodies enter activation mode when we feel threatened. In fight or flight mode, our vagus nerve sends the SOS signal to our sympathetic nervous system, activating our stress response and making our cortisol levels rise, our body temperature rise, and our heart pump faster. We focus on louder, more distressing sounds in this state, and we register only predator sounds, high and low frequencies. So, flight trauma response. You can be uncomfortable or panicky when still. There's chronic rushing, history of ended relationships abruptly, commitment issues, feels trapped, energy spent micromanaging people and situations, making plans to avoid downtime, throws self into work, and anxiety and panic attacks freeze. Freeze trauma responses. History of shutting down, giving the silent treatment, avoiding something completely, hiding away from the world, feeling of numbness, like life is pointless, procrastination, can't make small decisions, endless scrolling on binge TV, confusion over what is actually happening, can't distinguish between storytelling and reality, and often this is misdiagnosed with depression. All right. Nervous system dysregulation. In today's fast-paced world, we live in a state of chronic stress. Our nervous system is overworked and underappreciated. We are living in a chronic sympathetic mode. When we have unresolved trauma, our vagal tone becomes weak, also known as our response to stress, threat, and more trauma. When we have weak vagal tone, we also have digestive issues, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, and chronic illness. Having a weak vagal tone will keep us stuck in our sympathetic nervous system. Think fight or flight. If we have a dorsal vagal tone, then we will stay in freeze mode where we will think we are constantly under threat and unsafe. So, signs of a low vagal tone. Can't regulate emotions, issues with focus and concentration, depression, anxiety, high inflammation, chronic fatigue, and digestion issues. Some of those kind of sound a lot like ADHD when you actually think about it. It's kind of fascinating that, like I said before in previous episodes, how similar these two are. Okay, even though the autonomic nervous system responses are subconscious, there are ways that we can improve the tone to help calm the nervous system. So how to strengthen vagal tone? Breath work. Healing the gut. Remember, the vagus nerve is our gut-brain connection. Daily movement like dancing, shaking, gut health, omega-3 fatty acids, gargling, singing. Actually, that directly calms the vagus nerve. Cold showers, laughter, chanting, massage, and aromatherapy. Understanding polyvagal theory and how our trauma and stress impact our physical and mental health can help us feel empowered to heal. Participating in these easy and accessible tips can do wonders for your health. Yeah, that's quite something, eh? Like, a healthy vagal system, or, well, polyvagal system really works like you can, if since we are for the most part have the trauma and the triggers, we really don't know or don't have an idea as to what a proper behaving vagal nerve and the system that has been explained in this episode, we don't really know what that feels like. And as far as we're concerned, our experiences are or appear or feel normal to us. But of course, as we learn when we go through this and we go to therapy and we do our work and we learn about like CPTSD and the different theories and the way of the work that's out there, we then eventually learn that our responses are not normal, unfortunately. And it's unfortunate because one of these things that you figure out is that you're always feeling triggered, or you're always feeling like in a fight or flight mode. So you have to get the right help and the right work, and then it really does make a difference. Okay, so just a little bit more on the whole polyvagal. Here are some causes of nervous system damage. The leading cause of damage to the nervous system is the overwhelming and chronic washing of the brain by stress hormones brought on by severe and repeated childhood trauma. So basically CPTSD, but in a different way. Stress hormones are notoriously known to damage a child's brain, including the vagal nerve and both the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. Adverse childhood experiences are some of the events that can cause such damage, and they include any or all of the following: physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect, exposure to domestic violence, household substance abuse, household mental illness, parental separation or divorce, an incarcerated household member. Clearly, this encompasses intergenerational trauma, personal trauma, complex trauma, and may result in complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Wow. Yeah, this is why we're reading this, right? The more a child experiences this, the more likely they are to have damage to their parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. All right, the differences in the symptoms of sympathetic versus parasympathetic damage. As one can imagine, there are many side effects of having damage to either the sympathetic or the parasympathetic systems. So let's break that down. How does each feel, and what are the responses? So first, sympathetic nervous system damage. There are many natural effects that the sympathetic nervous system has on the body when triggered, including the following: sensing a threat and freezing to scan for the danger, releasing cortisol, norepinephrine, epinephrine, and other stress hormones to prepare for the body for fight or flight, feeling angry, afraid, or very anxious. Digestion and other bodily functions considered non-essential, slow to allow blood to rush to the muscles. The need to run away, hit something, or react physically in some way become overwhelming, and senses become focused and hyper alert. When these reactions become chronic due to childhood trauma, sensing a threat becomes sensing a perceived threat because of the past event. The person will release stress hormones in response to this perceived threat just as if it were a real one, and become angry, afraid, or filled with anxiety. The immune and digestive systems shut down to make more blood for the muscles so that we can run away, and we might react by wanting to hit something or someone. Our senses remain in a state of constant hyper alertness, ready for the next trigger to happen. Okay, parasympathetic nervous system damage. Here's the differences. The job of the parasympathetic system is twofold: to calm us down after a fight, and to keep us in a frozen state to help us survive so we can fight or flight again. When the parasympathetic nervous system is damaged by childhood trauma, either or both of the functions mentioned above breaks down, leaving the person with the following problems: feelings of numbness, dissociation, hopelessness, shame, trapped or disconnected, spacing out, greatly decreased heart rate, blood pressure, and sexual arousal, and lower immune system response, having difficulty finding words, loss of awareness, inability to consolidate memories properly, lowered ability to feel pain. Many survivors who have damaged parasympathetic nervous systems dissociate, which is experience of feeling disconnected from the sense of self, and have problems spacing out. They may be ill more than other people because their immune system is compromised. They have trouble finding the appropriate words to express how they are feeling and experience a lack of self-awareness. Survivors often have memory problems and experience a lowered ability to experience pain, which is dangerous because pain is necessary to know when one is injured. All right, and the good news, just to wrap up this episode. According to the Polyvagal Theory, all is not gloom and doom, as the damages done to the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems can be healed with much time, learning, therapy, and elbow grease. Therefore, it is well worth the while of anyone experiencing any of the symptoms listed above to ask their doctor or therapist for treatment based on the theory of Stephen Porges. Healing takes courage, and we all have courage even if we have to dig a little to find it. Tori Amos. All right. If you or a loved one are living in the despair or in isolation that comes with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, basically, I recommend you getting some help. The one website that I have actually looked at a lot is called the CPTSD Foundation. They offer a wide range of services. They include daily calls, the Healing Book Club, Mindfulness, Prayer, and Meditation Circle. They have support groups. They have a blog, and then they have a trauma-informed newsletter and daily encouragement texts. I think that if you really want to look in getting some help and some assistance while you're also seeing a therapist and you're doing the work after your therapy, check this website out. It is very helpful and has a lot of good information that you could definitely look at. There's not a lot of information online, which is unfortunate because it's still fairly new and not everybody understands and is educated as to what CPTSD really is. And I would definitely recommend doing a lot of research for yourself before going to your doctor or your therapist if you've never done it before. If you think that you like all the symptoms and the things that I was talking about in this episode, if you're thinking that this is definitely you, do the research and then go to your doctor. Even if you do know that you have CPTSD, I think this will be very helpful for you. And I hope that this will give you a bit more understanding as to how CPTSD works. Like, I know I have gone through other areas and discussed like the definitions and the information that works with CPTSD, but this is a very more like down to earth understanding of it, and this should help you get a real good grasp on what exactly you're going through on a daily basis. CPTSD is definitely not something that is going to go away without work. You can't just fix it by repeating to yourself that you're going to be okay, that you can do this, that you can make this better. You do need to get help, and you do need to go see a therapist in order to properly heal. And it will take time. This isn't something that just happens, in a year or 2 years. Some people have a much better ability to understand what CPTSD is. CPTSD. Yes, sorry, I'm thinking that I'm not saying it right. Excuse me. Some theories work better than others, like EMDR. The structural dissociation theory works for people who are really more at the extreme end and close to dissociative identity disorder. If you're curious about that, then I could definitely recommend going online and taking a look at it and doing some research on DID. Some of you may not even realize that you have this. I don't have really any information at the moment to discuss it, and I'm already at the end of my episode. Perhaps at a future date I will talk about dissociative identity disorder, so that people who may think they have it or know they have it can get some information. Okay, well, I think that's all for today. This has definitely been very educational for myself, and I think this could be extremely helpful for everyone out there. Hopefully it gives you a much broader understanding of CPTSD and will help you in the future. If you want to discuss this further with a professional, I definitely recommend it. The bottom line, to be honest, is do your research. Don't just take somebody else's word for it. Like, I'm by no means an expert. I am actually talking more about personal experiences rather than, trying to declare that I know how to make things better and that my way is good and do this, do that, right? That's not what I'm asking you guys to do. I just want you guys to basically feel like you're not alone and that there are other people out there that have CPTSD. So that's the main purpose of this. When I was talking about the Polyvagal Theory with my therapist a couple days ago, it really opened my eyes, because one thing I was struggling with still, like, even though I've been doing this for just over 2 years now, I had been struggling understanding exactly what, like, the 4-step process was, the idea of having child parts. They also can be considered to be different personalities. They don't necessarily have to be literal, like, secondary selves or other parts, like people, separate parts or persons from you. They can be like different personalities, activated emotional stress responses that come up whenever you get triggered or having a flashback. That's sort of the thing that is a little more better to understand, because if you are going to therapy and let's say you just happen to be someone who is having structural dissociation theory as your work, you might not truly understand what it entails and understand the 4-step process and really get what parts are, because it's not everybody is the same way, of course. Some people have a better way of healing through some CPTSD through CBT. Some really get better with EMDR. There is a combination. Personally, I think a combination of all the different work is probably the best way to go about it. And I know that since I've been going to therapy, I have been trying to understand, and I know about and understand the idea of having child parts and flashbacks and being triggered and experiencing relapses and trauma and being blended with my parts, which some people may know as being activated or heightened, having a stress response, like an emotional response, because you're impaired emotionally, and your ability to react in the proper way, as I've discussed earlier in the episode, is a lot harder to do. So it works into it. And if you have severe trauma, it will be probably more beneficial to find someone who can do structural dissociation theory rather than strictly EMDR or CBT theory, because some of them don't work as well, especially if you really believe that you have other identities that come out and you don't have any memories of it. That's a big sign. that you may likely have DID. All right. Okay, everybody, that is it. Again, the video portion of this episode, which is a full episode, is available, or it will be when this is released. And I also will have it on YouTube, so you can check it out there. I, again, hope this was very beneficial for everybody who's listening. If you have any questions, you can definitely contact me. I am on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @ADHD and CPTSD. There is my website, which is www.livingwithadhdandcptsd.ca. And I have my Facebook page. I am on Patreon, and if you would like to subscribe to me at the Anchor website, you can definitely do that and help support me either there or on Patreon, and then I'll be able to have more content and do more episodes of different, maybe some extra bonus information, or maybe some interviews one-on-one with people. If you would like to talk to me, you can definitely do that. Just message me, and then we can go from there. I would love to talk to any of you guys. I am actually just having a conversation with someone from Twitter who I met online, and we are, enjoying our conversations, learning about each other's experiences with CPTSD and ADHD. So if you are interested in having an open and honest conversation without judgment and no fear of being laughed at or not taken seriously, by all means, give me a shout. Look me up on Twitter and let me know, and then I would be more than happy to. And actually, yeah, I'd love to talk to you guys. All right, that's today's episode. Okay, everybody, have a great week, and I will be back next week. Bye.